we're gonna just begin with, just make sure that we've got the time that we need to. Can we begin with just some minor items of counseling really quickly? Two things that come off the top of my head, and then I want to take you to a scripture to just kind of get us thinking of some things. We have currently kind of a trifecta illness thing going on right now, whether it's COVID, flu, RSV, or whatever the heck is out there, right? And so a question had come up by one of our stake supervisors. Do you want to ask your question real quick, and then we can just kind of counsel together?
Well, I just wondered, when you have more than 2 teachers out in a building, or multiple students and teachers, do you send them all a lesson to do online, or, student manual lesson, or? Like,
What are your thoughts? How do we approach when we've got multiple? How do you guys feel about what you would want to do? What's the actual policy? What do we do? We cancel?
Well, there's got to be at least 2 adults in the building at all times.
Okay, so you got to watch that.
Oh. We'll talk.
We'll talk. Yeah.
I would either get a sub or combine with the other class, because if I'm canceling, then that consistency is not there. That would scare me, that I wouldn't get the access again.
And subs are so easy to get.
Which is kind of your point.
Right.
Subs are kind of hard. Combining classes, we need to do that. I am always willing to come and help. I don't want to speak for Brother Wright. He's not always willing to help. I'm just kidding. Who was I talking to that mentioned that they send a blast out to parents, and they're like, right here. You're like, parents, I need you. So we don't call. That's a source that we can
And
also
I've
use.
also done the combined thing, and I think that is a great solution. In fact, I just did that for another teacher on Friday, and I think combining is a great solution occasionally. We obviously don't want to do that all the time.
Right.
But I think that works well.
Yeah, I know you're by yourself, Sister Green. No,
No,
I'm
I'm
just
just
kidding.
saying, I do have parents that sit in the parking lot, so.
Absolutely.
But they're not gonna teach. But the cool thing you could do, they will not teach, I'm gonna tell you right now. But you could print off really fast the home study,
And have,
whatever, and get them to the class and have, pick them up, and then they could just be in the class while they do their home study.
yeah, it's an easier sell to ask parents to come and be in there as kind of a coach or mentor versus teaching the lesson. So interesting things. If things start kind of happening in your building, if you have multiple teachers or if it's just you or whatever it is, make sure you talk to your supervisors. And supervisors, please don't hesitate to reach out to us so that we can make adjustments and help out as much as we can. Okay. Any final thoughts on that? This may or may not, depending on where you are, and I know that Brother Wright's his coordinating group, it may be slightly different, but for mine, I do know that some teachers have already given the assessment. So I'm just curious, what did you learn? Best practices? Maybe a warning voice? Like what would you say from your experience thus far in giving the assessment? Yeah.
I would definitely go over it in class, like explain to them, because I had so many kids who weren't there and I just handed it to them that like did not understand what I was asking for. And so I would get like, what, instead of a scripture reference, I would get principle 2 or principle 4, or something, and they just didn't quite understand it. So I was just going over it with them, explaining exactly what it is, because it's so much bigger than.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
I understand that there were, at one point, I think there were several types of tests. You could choose from.
In my group, we actually had some options. I know that with Brother Wright, you guys just stayed with what you had, right?
Hey, I offered options.
You offered options. So there are options. So if you're still interested in wanting to know and have an explanation, come talk to me after. I'll talk to you about those options. Yeah.
So we took one of the options that you presented to us.
Yeah.
And we've been taking Fridays for them to write their questions and draft their answers as well.
Have you been doing it as a group?
I allow them to work as a group, but we do it in class.
Sure.
Yeah, some of them want to do it individually, and it's been pretty interesting to see the questions they pick, because I don't give them the question, I give them a passage and ask them what question might they ask about how this would apply and how they would learn from it, and the kids have actually responded extremely well. They really like being able to think about the scriptures for themselves. Much better than when we were doing multiple choice questions where they're like, okay, whatever. It became, at that point, it became like what they do at school. How much can I get away with and get this test done?
Right.
And now they're having to say, what am I learning? So,
Yeah, has anybody had the question, how many can I miss?
yeah.
Have you gotten that question? Which is what I always got with multiple choice, right? Other thoughts? So Eric's an expert, so if you have questions about giving it, come talk to Eric.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I wanted to do, I'm gonna share my screen here and we're gonna have it up on this.
The question, by the way, real quick, do missionaries playing basketball count as two adults in the building?
Yes.
It would,
Yeah.
it would.
Would it really?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so the policy is, that Chad Webb, our administrator, came out with, he said, there just has to be in the building too. So it doesn't need to be in the same room. And actually, the policy does read that they should be, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think they have to be the same sex or they have to be married. Is that right
Will you fix this for me?
with that?
Show, it's doing that.
If they're opposite, I can't remember.
No, if they are opposite sex, they must be related.
Yeah,
And if they are not related, they must be the same sex.
yeah, I think that is.
Yeah. It's your too deep, it's your basic too deep.
Yeah, TD.
Yeah.
Do like 18-year-old students count as adults?
They do not.
Until they graduate, they do not, which is funny. Great. Any other thoughts? Anything else you feel like we should talk about as a group before we get into some data? Because I know that's why you're here. Okay. Well, I want to just point your attention to some of the things. I feel like when we're on the ground teaching, we often don't realize the work, the good that is actually taking place with what you are asked to do. We see this much of the vision, and we often see only this much of the vision, and we don't see what happens once they leave our classroom. So I want to kind of open your view a little bit. I want to give you a little bit of a different perspective, okay? This was information that we received, I don't know, it was a month ago, right? I'm actually going to move past the Institute one. We'll talk here in a second about Institute, but let's talk seminary, okay? Okay, this is church-wide. Okay, do you notice kind of what's happening? It is worldwide. We have a bit of a demographic slip. So by 2023, we're down 100,000 seminary students. Yes, sir.
What exactly do you mean by demographics? Is this racial, ethnical?
Having less kids.
Okay.
What they did is they're counting how many there currently are in primary.
Yeah.
And then they're projecting, which is typically how they project out several decades out, is they look and see who's currently in primary. So right now, this is currently what we're facing, okay? It's a little bit of a demographic slide. Can you see that all right in the back? Okay, do I need to turn off this light so you can see?
Oh, you got it.
Okay? Now, there may or may not be anything for you and I to do about this demographic slip.
Multiply and replenish the amount.
Yeah. Make sure you teach your children well, I guess, is what we're talking. But there is something to be said with our ability to retain students. Trying really hard to invite and have those who aren't coming attending. As has been stated in the past, we typically do really good with those students who come from active families. They come, But there's a whole segment that we lose often, usually. And I'm not saying we're failing necessarily, but there may be some room in our individual efforts to make that invitation, to reach out to that parent, to talk to that bishop, to see what we can do to bring in some of those who are not currently attending. But let me just kind of show you what is the benefit to our students attending our classrooms.
Sorry, Ricky, did you share, this is the church research department?
Right.
Yeah, so they did all these things, right?
So seminary is positively associated with future participation in the church. If you are an enrolled seminary student, you are almost 2.5 times more likely to participate in the church in the future. That's what it does. 2.5 times more likely. If they graduate, if they are there all 4 years, they are 4.2 times more likely to be participating in the church in the future. It's one of the key indicators to lifelong discipleship, attendance in seminary. It's interesting. It's hopeful.
Wait, is your calling working? It is.
Are you doing the good you hope you are doing? While seminary is associated with increased church participation for those with active parents, those increases. If they come from inactive families, these odds are higher.
Which is awesome, because that is showing, in my opinion, that it's not just good families with good parents sending them that makes it happen. It's showing that on its own, seminary is helping people even without that.
So before we move on from this slide, what thoughts and feelings are you having? Yeah.
How do we, excuse me if I offend anybody, how do we get through the parents to not do that? We have 15 or 16 enrolled, and sometimes we get 7. And we have, my wife, bless her heart, is doing so much makeup work. She's probably handed out, dozens and dozens, and what do we do? I mean, we're trying our best to present for better, but it just seems the priorities are kind of weird. Maybe you should talk to bishops or something. What do we do?
We need to contrast this with a graph of how likely they are to end up in the professional sports.
Yeah.
Very unlikely.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have to say, I ran in college. I even trained like Olympic trials at one point.
Yep.
Sports are also good.
There.
I'm not saying priority rise, I chose not to run on Sunday and things like that. That made it hard later on, but that was a choice I made. But when I was at this stage in high school, I had a seminary teacher that was so awesome because I couldn't come as often. And she just always told me, if you make this priority, like, you will be blessed. And I'll be honest, I didn't go maybe as much. I ended up doing makeup work, but it stuck with me and it helped me. So the whole point being, love them. Love them when they're there, great. When they're not, ask them what they're doing. Ask them how their sports are. I really believe that. I think that the sports is really good. It helps. A lot of kids get in a lot of trouble. It's better than them playing video games.
I would hesitate to say one versus the other, right? This is supposed to be we're supporting families. Yeah. Right? So be careful how we message this. We support families. Yeah. You want to just chill right there?
I just wondered if there was someone.
Yeah.
So my daughter did band. That prevented her from doing seminary.
Yeah.
But she did home seminary. She could do both. So she couldn't attend in person. She didn't attend in person any of her 4 years, but she graduated from seminary.
That's awesome.
So you can encourage, even if they can't come in person, there's other ways to do it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think a big thing too is if they feel like they have a friend in seminary, they want to come. If they come and sit by themselves and no one talks to them. So I work a lot on unity in my class, having them, make sure they don't, sometimes someone will say a comment. I'm like, really? Like, we love everyone and talk about that and do different activities to kind of talk about unity and gratefulness and appreciate others in the classroom. So they kind of feel that. I kind of tell them you're kind of like the armies of Helaman, right? You come into class and you kind of walk to school and you kind of go and into school. But I think that unity, they feel like they're wanted and they're missed if they're not there.
Yeah, belonging is huge with this, right? You have to make seminary relevant. They need to feel like they belong, and they need to have converting experiences when they're with us, right? Let's go here, here, and then I actually want to have Sister Bert introduce herself and her role. So let's go here.
I might be getting myself in trouble saying this, but we have 2 young men who are involved in sports. And we record me, not the class, but we record me teaching the class for them, so they can watch it. And then they also answer the questions in the seminary.
That's a really interesting solution to that problem. How do we feel about that? You guys want to record yourselves? Just don't watch your recording. Just record yourself and send it out. That's actually what I do. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think that my husband meant to imply that sports weren't good.
No, no.
Yeah, they build confidence, they
Sure.
give character, all those things are good.
Mhm.
It's just that in our situation, we are not getting I mean, they're not doing anything.
Sure.
I think even if you are a talented athlete, or if you're participating in sports, you cannot be one-sided. You have to
You're right.
have a balance. You
You're
have to
right.
have your spiritual side
Yep.
too.
And those are really great messaging to give to parents. Let's go here, and then Sister Bert, I want you to tell us what
That's
you're
really
doing. Yeah.
I also think it's okay for us to encourage the parents to
Yep.
have maybe sometimes it feels like a difficult conversation with coaches. Because our experience has been that when we have talked to coaches and said, you know what, our kids have this early morning religious class, it's a Bible study class that they go to, they get credit for it, it helps them to get into the college that they want to go to. And we explain it from that perspective. We have had 100% coaches trying to figure out how they can accommodate us, which is shocking. And I know that's not always the case, but why not give it a try?
Right.
You know, that should be the first idea is let's just present it and see how willing they are to compromise or accommodate us. And then if not, we can go from there. But a lot of times I find that the parents and the students haven't even approached the coach to let them know that they're missing this other thing.
Right.
To be at
I
practice.
love it. I love it. Sister Bert, will you just kind of introduce yourself and tell us what your calling is in the Fresno Stake? And stake supervisors, if this is a good idea, maybe you make some phone calls.
So
Yeah.
I've been newly called to the Fresno Stake to basically help the seminary teachers with students who have work that they need to make up and students who are doing independent study. And so I've been contacting, they give me a list, I talk to the teachers, they give me a list of any students that need help, and I've been contacting them, and I've been doing this for just a little bit. It's still very, very new, but so far I've had really good responses.
Parents are happy, yeah?
Yes.
So do they send their work to you?
Yes.
Okay.
So they send it to me, so I take that load off from the.
This is a bit of an experiment. Some of you are looking at me like, what? This is a bit of an experiment, and we've given Sister Bert access to Wise 2, so she can see all those who are currently behind in certain things, and she can, if you are doing your thing in Wise and putting in what lessons you're doing in which day, Sister Bert knows what they need to do to make up. So I'm throwing that out there as a solution. Have conversations if you feel. Go and do. Okay, let me show you a couple other things. I'm sorry, this may bleed into some other time, but this is good conversation. I'm just gonna do it this way then. Why is it not doing it?
Senator Anderson?
Yes, ma'am.
I got a text out of the blue from a student that I had years ago,
Yeah.
married with kids, thanking me for something that I said in seminary that she has never forgotten and has helped her stay in the church. Who knows what that was?
All right. And you know
I
what?
have
Sometimes
no
they can't
idea.
even tell you what it is. It's just how they felt when you said it, right?
Exactly,
They're
but I
not.
thought, oh, I am gathering Israel. Yes.
It's sharing.
Listen, I mean, they're married
I'm
with
not
kids,
sure.
and she texts me.
Okay, well, let me just show you a couple other slides. This is what we're currently looking at. If we were to take all of our freshmen at year 9, right? This is our slow decline to seniors. So at typical rates, if we have all of our freshmen, by the time we get to senior year, we've actually lost 28% of them.
Quite a dropout rate.
It is a little, that's kind of a high rate, and then we get to 53% graduation that's our kind of church average.
Okay, so that's global.
It's global. And obviously, yes, it's global. So you're gonna have to take that for what it's worth. But I think that there are things that we can do thinking outside of the box to kind of approach some of these things. Okay.
Sorry, technical difficulty for those on Zoom real fast. I'm going to try to
It's okay.
do this a little bit different.
What I wanted to show you is, I know that we get really consumed with this much of what we're doing, and that sometimes all we can do is just keep our heads above water from day to day and from lesson to lesson. I understand that. And I don't want you to feel like we really are, I don't know if that's sharing anymore. Is it still sharing?
It is sharing
Okay,
now.
cool. If we were to focus a little bit more on our seniors and do a little bit of the effort in trying to keep those in, we actually see a slight demographic change if we focus on the enrollment issue. Now, this is way more for me than it is for you guys, but what I want to show you is, as much as we consider what we do on the daily, I want to just show you one other thing that maybe we sometimes disconnect. It's when we move them from seminary to then institute, which we often don't think about as state called teachers. Do you feel like you have any responsibility towards students making that jump from seminary to institute? We often don't think about it. And I don't want you to feel like I'm asking you to do more. I just want to show you the data. If you can have a conversation with your graduating seniors about institute, number one thing I hear from from YSAs who've never been to institute is, I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah.
So, if you could just let them know, that'd be great. Okay? Here's actually what's happening with institute. Since the pandemic, look at what happened. There has been a very real concerted effort in the church for institute. So worldwide, we've seen a bit of a jump, okay?
Tell them about your jump here.
I don't even know if I got good numbers. What's our numbers here? What was it before and what is it now?
Pre-pandemic, we had students attending maybe 6, 8 kids or less per class. We would have maybe 10 or 15 kids in the building during the day, that kind of thing. Our night class was roughly 25, 30 on a good night. Currently, our night class is hitting 60 to 75 students. Our day classes are, 25, 30. There are other classes that are like specifically missionary that are like 80. So it's jumped significantly.
And so down in my area in Visalia, Hanford, Porterville, they're all combined into one YSA in Visalia. So there's a Wednesday night class down there every week on Wednesday at 7. Wednesday at 7 here up in Fresno,
Right.
in this building.
Yeah, you can make those invitations to seniors, especially get into the second half as they're facing graduation. I would love for seniors in high school to show up Wednesday night and hang out with YSAs and have a meal and socialize. I would love for that to take place, just so that they know what's happening and what it is, right? Yeah.
My seniors loved going to Institute when we lived in Boise at the time, and of course, I can't even think of his name, but he was their seminary teacher and ended up at
the Institute.
So that was a little bit of the draw, but
Right.
but loved it, so that was kind of a freeing thing when they were, seniors and feeling big to introduce that too. But then another thought, actually my husband and I were talking about this morning. He was wondering, as bishop, sometimes he's asked, like, how can I get the information for like when classes are, and he feels a little disconnect. So I don't know if that's something that you're putting in bishop's hands or not, but.
We
and then
put them in the
actually-
stake's hands,
Okay,
but
so
maybe
then
that
that's
just
something
needs
not
to
yet.
be.
No, in the bishops. And then like Cam in person, he is a missionary in our ward, and I remember, I forgot to ask even when classes are. So for some reason, there's a disconnect and they're not able to get the information when classes are.
Okay,
So-
good.
We'll
Yeah.
start sending that to bishops.
Yeah, it'll go directly to wards.
I have 2 points, and one thing is, a lot of credit has to do with you. Yeah.
Yes.
that's true,
You have a feel, you have an intensity, you have just some really ingrained connections, and your teaching style, it really does invite people to come.
I will tell you, I'm not taking any of the credit. There is a real sense of belonging that takes place Wednesday nights where YSA show up and they feel like they're part of something. We have probably a handful of non-members that come every Wednesday night. And not to throw priorities out of whack, but they've each told me, we love coming and we would love to join the church. We're just not really sold on the Book of Mormon yet. Like they're feeling the belonging. That's gonna come.
Oh, yeah.
But they wanna be here.
And so just recently we were released from the YSA, so there was a portion was this really sweet of straddling being in the YSA Ward of Heritage in North State.
Right.
And also last year being the senior teacher. So you got to see and transition the kids, see you in the morning, I'm gonna see you on the Sabbath day.
Right.
And that really, now we've been released and the team teachers now in the
Doing
YSA over there. So you have a watchful eye. I
Yep.
don't know if that's always the case, of any credit to it, but there was a kind of a massaging.
Yeah.
And when you came into class, you talked about your weekend, and this is what I do with the YSA. And so it really helped, it's,
Sometimes it's just messaging and letting them know what it is and what we do.
yeah, there's a lot of benefits. So along with it, I think also the stakes for the YSA, because they were always trying, we had different wards, and this was brought everybody together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Institute has its vital part.
Well, let me just show you. This is kind of a similar thing. The church's research department shows that attending Institute is as predictive of lifelong discipleship as being born in the covenant, serving a mission, or being sealed in the temple. It's up there. Showed that Institute has an impact on students as strong as attending a church college. So if you think BYU is the be all end all, it's not. Institute is there. So I ask that more as selfishness. Just talk to your seniors. If you have seniors in your class, make that a conversation as we get closer to graduation.
For our students in high school that are high risk, we bring the junior college to them. And I'm wondering if we could bring you or someone, a contact in to say, hey, this is me, let's enroll you right here in class. You can always drop out if you decide you don't want to, this is the process, right? And we explain that information in a one-to-one setting, and that kind of takes off that, I don't know what it is, I'm not sure I want to do it piece. And then
Absolutely.
have a night where they all come, and all the seniors can come and have a social.
If you decide, I would be more willing, because I don't want to take over anybody's class, but we did do this in certain other release time programs where we had an Institute day where we had Institute people show up for class and actually teach about Institute and then have a learning experience and invitation. So I am making that as an open invitation for those of you who are teaching seniors. If you would like for me in second semester or Brother Wright, and you would like for us to come and have an Institute day and teach them, we'll even teach from the block so you don't lose a day. Okay? We'll do it that way. Yes, ma'am.
Do you ever have like an Institute preview day though, like one day specifically?
You know,
come to this
I have
event?
not gotten to the spring semester yet in my assignment, so yes, but I've not done one. Have we done one?
I think we'll invite the seniors.
I'm putting it on the book right now.
Yeah, she's scheduling it. So, what I want to say is, I want to say thank you for all of your efforts. We really are moving the needle, and I don't. Maybe we say it, but I just want to prove it to you. You are moving the needle. The work that you are doing matters. And regardless of the frustration that comes with working with teenagers in the morning when they're tired and would rather be doing some other thing, that feels that sometimes can just get in the way of seeing the grander vision. But you are moving the work forward. You have a great effect on the youth of the church. So continue to be on your knees, continue seeking revelation, continue teaching from the scriptures and connecting students to Christ. It's working. And it did for me personally as a student. It's working for my current seminary-aged children, and it just will continue to be as you continue to include Christ in your efforts to do what you're asked to do. And I say that in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.